One of the key things that a lot of people are experiencing with EVs are the range anxiety.
We drove the car from Kuwait to Saudi to Dubai without recharging.
Fantastic.
I mean, that itself is a mythbuster about the range anxiety. I mean, it's actually a shame to label Chinese cars as basic model. We have to give an individualized experience to the customers it's going to cost money. We are selling Chinese cars. So how can we afford this?
That's so nice of you to be so vulnerable.
No offense to any Chinese operator. Essentially, all of the car specifications are almost the same.
Muneeb, that's not easy to confront the things that stare you in the face.
That people no longer care about the badge. They care about the value. And we're still evolving.
I love the word evolving. It's like my cup.
Very strong statement. But I actually mean what I'm saying.
Yeah. So welcome back to another session with Percy. And today is our official first podcast of Talk of Talk. So what does talk mean? It's the ability to accelerate, and talk is to talk about the acceleration. And today I have a very special guest with me, Muneeb Jamil. Muneeb, welcome.
Thank you, Percy, for having me here. I really appreciate that.
And I'm so privileged to have you as my first official guest with Talk.
Of course, I had no clue that I would be the first guest, but thanks for the honors.
Yes, you are. So the word talk must be sounding familiar to you at the moment.
Of course.
You and I have had a lot of discussions regarding talk.
Of course.
But we'll talk about that a bit later. But I'm so excited to have you here with me and really making this a real good opportunity to talk about automotive's challenges that we have.
Absolutely.
And the challenge that we face in the automotive industry. And obviously, you've got an extensive portfolio of more than 17 years in FMCG, food and beverage, and now automotive.
Automotive, absolutely.
So where did it all start? Talk to me, Muneeb.
Believe it or not, actually, I started in investment banking. Within my 17 years of extensive career, I started in investment banking in a Singapore office. I'm an ex-finance and now working in operations. If I was to summarize, actually, my career has nothing been but linear. Starting from pure hardcore investment banking to corporate finance. And then I moved into finance of FMCG, F&B, corporate finance, retail and distribution, and then automotive. Right? But within this span, I have been evolving from a pure finance guy to a business partner. And eventually the right moment came where I realized that why am I labeled as a business partner? I should be the business guy myself. And so that's why I transformed from a finance guy into an operations guy like 6-7 years ago.
I mean, that's so amazing to hear. And I'm so impressed by your experience and your portfolio. So let's talk about this automotive sector. This is why you're here today. Both of us are automotive guys and we love the automotive industry. So where did this love of automotive start?
Oh, it started like 10 years ago. I mean, look, as a kid, everyone has a dream car.
Yeah,
right? Of
course.
My dream car always had been something which I actually drive. I always fall in love with something which I have.
Yes.
So 10 years ago, my organization was kind enough to actually experiment me in automotive. And a bit of a funny story, I had no clue about automotive. I mean, how cars work. If someone was to ask me what is a V8 engine or how the transmissions work, I have no clue. But now I have evolved into learning what the industry is, so much so that I'm in love with it. I've had the privilege of working for actually even American brands, Japanese brands, and now Chinese. And the evolution in the last 10 years, which I've seen with my own eyes, I cannot speak on behalf of the whole world automotive, but at least what I see within GCC has been phenomenal. I personally break it down into pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Okay.
I mean, post-COVID, I would say, has been a breakthrough for the Chinese brands. I mean, how they have come about and how they have made a footmark for themselves is just incredible. Myself, working in the Chinese brands, have been involved in acquisition of Chinese brands. It's just remarkable how agile these manufacturers in China are.
Yeah, I've seen, for instance, the Jetour, and that is not in your portfolio, but as an example of the growth that is experienced globally in terms of 243% growth.
Absolutely.
In terms of its volume and penetration in markets. And that is across Africa, Middle East, Asia, everywhere. So it seems to really show that the Chinese brands are trying to make a footprint. Absolutely. And trying to make a statement.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned this brand, which actually has proven a great case study for I think, generations to come. That people no longer care about the badge. They care about the value. The brands which are offering value are the ones which people are adopting. I mean, I have dozens and dozens of stories of customers who actually thank us for allowing them to actually save money. Cars which people they were buying for 300, 400,000 dirhams or reals, now they're actually buying it for one third the value, one third the price at the same value, which is just incredible. Again, as I said, it's not about the badge which people carry, it's about the value proposition which the brand is bringing.
So if I hear what you're saying, it is a value proposition and pricing. Let's talk features.
Yeah.
Right? Features are also making a big impact.
I mean, you see a big smile on my face because with these Chinese cars, you will not believe the basic, we used to call it the basic trim.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually a shame to label Chinese cars as basic model. Because the basic cars even come with cameras and Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, remote connectivity, whatever, you just name it. Even the basic models are fully loaded. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had the privilege of working with you earlier.
Yeah.
And one of your team members took me around in an Exceed, and I think it was the RX.
Yeah.
And it's got an amazing feature because I was sitting in the back and sitting in the back seat, and the car was passing and the door wouldn't open. It kept flashing a light to show that you can't open the door because there's a
safety.
I've not seen this feature in any of the European or American vehicles.
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, one is the design aspect, which we just spoke about briefly. I think the features. I mean, you just named one RX, for example, in Exceed.
Yeah.
By the way, just to also clarify, the brand you took, the parent company is still Chery.
Yes.
And I represent Chery. And Chery has multiple brands under its belt. One of them is Chery itself, and the other one is Exceed. And they keep growing. I think the brand itself has had incredible growth. Yeah. I mean, they have been number one exporter for last 23 consecutive years.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I mean, that's a fantastic feat. I mean, you can aim to be number one, but to maintain that position for 23 consecutive years means they must be doing something correct, which no one else is able to. So that's the success story of Chery. But let's go back to RX, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of the features, right? I mean, when I tell customers that this car comes with a massage chair, they are like wowed.
Yeah.
And it's just not like some bricks or something. It actually is a genuine massage. I mean, heated, ventilated, cooling chairs. Amazing. You just name any feature, I can tell you this is on the car. Yeah.
Muneeb, I became one of the biggest advocates in terms of the Exceed brand. When I got into the vehicle, I was absolutely shocked. I've been used to working with the legacy brands my whole life.
Yeah.
And when I went into these Chinese brands, specifically Chery and Exceed, I was ultimately shocked regarding the quality of these vehicles. And I thought, if I don't want to use a comparison, but I felt I was sitting in a Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one testament to the brand's acceptability and the value proposition discussion, which we just alluded to, has been most of the customers who are trading in their cars.
Yeah.
They are not like old used Haraj Mazdas or Hyundais. Actually, these are the owners of Mercedes and BMW. I mean, believe it or not, there was one Aston Martin owner who came and I say, I want to have it as my second car, which was
fantastic.
Which is a very great success story for us, and we feel proud of the brand success. I mean, I was just telling you also, and we celebrated on our LinkedIn as well. Exceed has been hitting milestone after milestone after every month, right? We had a record-breaking month in Kuwait last month. And I think we are just scratching the surface for the brand.
And congratulations on the Kuwait market growth, but I see this is a global trend.
Oh, absolutely.
So I can see I wouldn't call it an aggressive approach. It's a subtle aggression in terms of making sure that we make a really good footprint for the Chinese brands and showing and showcasing what these cars are capable of.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, I was just privileged to be part of Xlantic's launch in Dubai a few days ago. It's another EV and REEV brand of Exceed. I mean, you just sit in the car, you have to feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, as they say, test drive drives success of conversion. Once you test drive those cars, you become a fan of the Chinese technology. It's just incredible. I mean, as you said, and where I'm trying to get to with these Chinese products are that the manufacturers are super agile.
Yeah.
When I started my automotive career, we used to hear that the life cycle of a vehicle is 6 years.
Yes.
I mean, Chinese have completely disrupted that. In 1 year, you see now a facelift. In 3 years, you see a new generation model. And by the time the facelift happens, there's another product coming in the market. So they have to listen to you. And imagine, look, I'll give you another example. Kuwait, for example, for the Chery manufacturers, don't even represent 1% of their total portfolio size.
Yeah.
But they do listen to you. They does reflect that voice of the customer matters. Any feedback that we give to them, they actually make sure that this incorporated in the next launch, which is not a small thing to do for a manufacturer that is manufacturing almost 3 to 4 million cars in a year.
That's fantastic.
It means how adaptable they are. And adaptability and agility is the name of the game right now.
I am so glad you used the word adaptability because you know where I'm going with this.
Of course.
I've been pushing you on AQAI, which is the Adaptability Quotient Assessments, in terms of measuring teams' adaptability. We'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
But I'm liking the buzzwords that are so related to what we've been doing for so long: evolving, adaptability. And one of the things that comes to mind, Muneeb, is I can see the joy and the passion that you have for what you do.
Absolutely.
And I know we're going to talk a lot about the automotive industry, but I really want to explore who Muneeb is today.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think you can see that the passion is already reflecting in terms of what Muneeb does and how he does things. So do you mind if I ask you to delve a bit more into you as an individual, and how does that drive the results that you deliver today?
Of course.
I think that's the essential key component of understanding who you truly are.
Of course.
So what brings you joy in life, Muneeb? That's really something that I want to explore with you today.
Got it, yeah. So Muneeb as an individual is super competitive. I mean, what brings me joy is success, very frankly.
Yeah.
And what actually pulls me back also is not just failure, is actually people who can succeed but are too laid back to succeed. I mean that's one of my challenges in building successful, high-performing teams. Has been that you have to bring people to the pace where they get the buy-in.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just about telling stories to people that you are accountable. No, it's just accountability, and then it has to be responsibility and buy-in. As long as there is emotional buy-in to what you are doing, I think you have a winning formula. It's just, we can always have all the KPIs, balance scorecards and Lean Six Sigma, whatever. We can put all of those KPIs. As long as your team does not have the emotional buy-in, I think it's a very short recipe for success.
So I think you have a very keen interest in high-performance teams and creating high-performance teams.
Yeah.
Knowing you very well, knowing that you're a typical driver, all right, with a sense of compliance. So that means that you drive results through factual database collection and then making decisions. How has that helped you in your success of your career?
Great question. I think it circles back to my background, numbers guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some people can call it as a negative stigma, but I always see it positively, that being a finance guy and having the insights to the numbers has always helped me make quick decisions. Because when you see the numbers, you can always read the story behind the numbers. That's why I think one of the most popular courses for anyone in the world is Finance for Non-Finance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, I always encourage all of the aspiring business leaders to go for this course. It always helps them. So circling back to my success story and building teams has been that whenever I see numbers, I can quickly relate to the decision which those numbers are asking. So I can always connect the numbers, connect the dots, and then drive the right decision.
And I think the good thing for you, Muneeb, being so indoctrinated in the automotive industry, which is a very operational, standard operating procedure, compliance kind of environment. It gives you the sense of becoming very operationally savvy. Absolutely. In terms of the number.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Many FMCG operators may not like it because I'm an ex-FMCG guy.
Yeah.
Is I found out automotive to be much fast operating than FMCG itself.
100%.
Because the SKUs, for example, FMCG are very standard. But in automotive, every customer is a case study. Every customer has a story behind it. Right? It's like an evolution of how we are going about it. I mean, so that's why we have to be very operationally savvy. And you have to be operationally agile because you cannot just apply a plain vanilla formula to every customer. Absolutely.
And I think you and I have been exploring the customer centricity portfolio along in terms of how do we create great customer experiences for customers that is so unique and so different to what any other manufacturer is doing. Or what is your plan in terms of creating such customer centricity? What thoughts do you have out there?
Oh, absolutely.
I want to pick your brain on that.
Oh, no, sure. Thanks for asking. I think, as we said, customers are moving away from the badge. They are more looking into value proposition. And if you think about it, no offense to any Chinese operator, essentially all of the car specifications are almost the same. When you look at plethora of brands around you, and plethora of car lines around you, what differentiates you? I think eventually it is just your dealership experience which you are creating for the customer, right? So it is how personally you're connecting with the customer is going to make the difference. From the moment your first touch point, which I call upper funnel, even before the customer walks into the showroom, to the point the customer walks into the showroom, and actually the post-purchase experience, that has to be very personalized. You cannot just neglect it.
And I guess that F&B experience has given you that kind of mindset of creating the uniqueness for the customer, right?
That was an absolute mindset shift for me.
Yeah.
I can tell you an example. As I said, I had never drank a coffee in my life, and my owner at that time said, Muneeb, that the coffee of this store is different from the other one. And I said, I was a finance guy, by the way, but I was always inquisitive, as I said, the story behind the numbers. So I visited both the stores, and it actually was different. And believe you me, it turned out that one store was using a different water filter than the other one. So that level of detail I actually got into. In the end, it relates to how value proposition we bring to the customers, right? And that I actually learned from my F&B experience.
I'm glad we're on the coffee topic, because you know where I'm going with this. Because one of the slogans that I have when I consult or when I work with automotive clients is know your customer's coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And it was kind of a sense of when customers walk through the door, how do we know what coffee they drink? And the moral of the story is by knowing your customer so well that we can create exceptional experiences.
Absolutely.
So how are you doing this in Chery and Exceed? I'm interested to explore. What do you do differently with your knowledge that you have that could make an impact for your Chery and Exceed customers?
I think the mindset shift to giving an individualized experience to the customer has been the difficult experience for me. I tell you, when I think the first perception when we try to relay this message to the staff and employees is that we have to give an individualized experience to the customers is, oh, it's going to cost money. We are selling Chinese cars. So how can we afford this? I mean, we had to move motions for this to get to our staff understand that you're not talking about expensive solution. I mean, I'll give you 2-3 success stories to help the audience understand what makes a difference. So once we saw a customer coming into our garage, and he had some mint, which is mints, etc., in his car, and had the empty wrapper. That's it, an empty wrapper. We identified that it was obvious that the customer eats mints, right? So at the time of the checkout, when the customer was delivering mint, our delivery advisor gave him, the customer, the mint, and he was like shocked. Like, Muneeb, how do you know this? And we were like, no, mister, we saw it in your car, and we think you may be interested in chewing it while you are driving, so we just refilled it. That is customer experience, right?
And it's that fine touch point that makes such a difference, Muneeb.
Absolutely. It wasn't about having an exceptional, expensive birthday party for the customer. No, it was just one small mint which made a difference for the customer experience. I mean, we have many stories which we are trying to change the mindset, where if you attend to a customer at an individual basis and personalize your experience, sometimes it's just about thank you, and sometimes it's just about saying sorry. I mean, I've seen our staff sometimes are so afraid to say sorry because they are thinking that customers are going to yell at them. I have seen with my own eyes dozens and dozens of times that when you say sorry, the body language just changes.
Absolutely, because it's almost an acceptance of acknowledgement of that. You might not be right, but you are right. And it's a beautiful thing to do, because the old philosophy of the customer is always right. It never goes away, and I'm glad that you and your team have adopted to that. So it seems that you've gone through a nice, clear career evolution in terms of the automotive industry, and that you're enjoying it.
Absolutely. Right. Oh, I love it.
That's fantastic news. All right. So, Muneeb, based on your career evolution, I now want to explore the success of Chery and Exceed in Kuwait. Let's talk about that. What do you define as success? You knew I was going to ask this question.
Of course.
I have to. What do you define as success, and what do you foresee Chery and Exceed look like in the next 3 years?
I mean, being a numbers guy, I'm going to give you numbers, right?
Go for it.
I am. I mean, I think what gives us a proud moment in my career, and I think I'm always going to quote this, is we started Chery from scratch, zero base. And I think within few months of our operations, we were the number 2 Chinese players in Kuwait. I mean, that was incredible success. That just, I mean, it's easier said than done. The effort it took behind to build the brand has been moving mountains, right? And then how we built this was, I tell you, it's easier said than done, is having a right team.
Yeah.
And what makes it more interesting is we actually built this team during COVID time.
Yeah.
I mean, doing online interviews, building the team, and trying to find the right resource, trying to actually negotiate with the OEM at that time was just mind-boggling. Yeah.
But it speaks of adaptability, right?
Yeah.
I keep reminding you of that word because you mentioned it. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think it was a bit of a discovery for me also as well, how adaptable you have to be when you're talking to the Chinese. It was a new experience for me for moving in from Japanese and Americans to talking to the Chinese. And they have a very different way of operating. Our philosophy always had been that give the least possible information to the OEM and keep that at a distribution level.
Yeah, of course.
The equation is completely the other way around with the Chinese.
Absolutely.
I have seen the more you give them information, the more you build trust, and the more they're willing to support you. And I mean, that has been one of the second success stories or the recipe of success for us. One was the team. I mean, the ownership which our original team had when we were launching Chery in Kuwait was you could feel it, right?
Yeah.
I had one team member who slept in the showroom for 3 nights consecutive when we were building the showroom. No one asked her to do that. And she was doing it on her own. I mean, we had a CRM manager and one marketing manager who actually used to cry when we used to get engagements on our social media. I mean, they used to feel the brand, the success of it, right? That is about the successful team. And no one ever cared. I mean, when you launch a brand, it's very natural you don't hit your target.
Yeah.
You miss earning your bonuses.
Yeah.
But I have seen our sales manager at that time, he did not care. He said, Muneeb, I know we are investing in the future. If not today, if not 3 months, down the line, 6 months, I would be making a lot of money. And he stayed with us for that long. So that was about a successful team, right? I mean, I'm probably getting emotional about it because it takes me back that days when we started the brand. It was incredible.
It comes natural for you, Muneeb, because you're a driver.
Yeah.
No one can move, I think, your portfolio of who you are as an individual and the trust that your organization has put in you to drive it forward as a driver has shown the success.
Yeah.
I mean, you just recently acquired another brand, right?
Absolutely. I think.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
No, sure. I can.
Not yet.
I think I would give you cues. I think it's the world's #1 EV brand.
Fantastic.
And I think I would say that our organization, what it invests in, believes in its future success. And I would tell you, I think that EVs are the way to go, provided there is the right infrastructure. I mean, like we had to move the hurdle of a mindset change of customers to accept Chinese. I think now we are moving towards the next hurdle where we have to change the customer's mindset to accepting EVs. And eventually it's going to happen, I tell you.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and I think that transitions really nice in our next conversation of EV versus ICE versus what drivetrain. One of the key things that a lot of people are experiencing with EVs are driver's anxiety, the range anxiety.
Range anxiety, absolutely.
Right, that's the correct term, if I may say
Yes.
so. So drivers and range anxiety is just the sense of similar to running out of fuel.
Absolutely.
Is my car sufficiently charged to drive the vehicle, right?
Yep.
So the adoption to EV, what is your approach? What do you think is going to be the success story behind it? And what's your strategy?
I think there are a lot of myth busters when you talk about EVs and I'll talk about Xlantex, for example, in this case, which has been launched, it has range extended technology. Yeah. Similar to hybrids, I mean, where the range goes up to 1,400 kilometers. But we did an experiment from Kuwait where we drove the car from Kuwait to Saudi to Dubai without recharging. Fantastic. I mean, that itself is a myth buster about the range anxiety. I mean, second thing I would tell you is actually the performance. Anyone who's actually trying to elevate his driving experience, forget whether it's an EV or an ICE. Shift, have a test drive of an EV or a hybrid, and I'm telling you, you're not going back to ICE. The driving experience, the performance experience is completely different. So even if I would actually highly encourage the audience that even if they have no intention of buying an EV or a hybrid, just test drive. And I'm telling you, down the line, it will be under your consideration.
Yeah, I think the whole adaption or adoption to EV has been a difficult one. But as we slowly progress and people start test driving these vehicles, they hear success stories and testimonials from the drivers that drive EV. I think that transition will take place gradually and then eventually accelerate very, very, very quickly.
Absolutely. I think few examples I can give also to clarify the anxieties in customers' minds or audience mind is that I always, it's synonymous or analogous to charging your mobile at night.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever goes to sleep, that's my practice, I'm pretty sure that's what you do, is that you put your phone on the charge before you go to sleep, right? And unplug it in the morning. Exact same story with EVs, right? You just plug it at home at night. In the morning is fully charged. So where is range anxiety in this, right? In a country like Kuwait, where are you gonna go, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm telling you, with the range extended, you actually drive up to 1,400 kilometers.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm driving an Xlantex, and I have bought it for more than a month. I have charged it only once.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, eventually, it's about customer education and how good a job a dealership would do in actually educating the customer about these questions. These are very natural questions, and they are the right questions. And that's our job actually to clarify to the customers and the audience that the technology is moving towards much faster than what we thought actually it is. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. And I think Al Ghanem itself, the company organization that you work for, is placing a huge investment in terms of making sure that the infrastructure is ready to be able to support the EV range that you guys are
absolutely. I think
launching.
So we ourselves are providing home installation, wall box, and fast chargers.
Yes.
And we are building an extensive network of infrastructure of charging points across the country. I mean, the circumference of the country itself helps our case, right? You can have those pockets where you completely remove any kind of worry, any kind of anxiety in customer's mind that he's going to run out of gas or of charging anywhere. Yeah.
I'm glad we looked at it from the customer's perspective. Allow me to transition you a bit more into dealer profitability, the numbers, in terms of profitability of EVs, serviceability of EVs versus sales versus after sales. And I think you'll enjoy this question because it's really up your alley. So what are service centers and showrooms and dealerships going to look like and profit-wise in the next 3 years, considering this high adoption to EV?
Absolutely. I think in ICE, the first ratio which I personally look at is absorption ratio.
Yes.
I mean, that actually always shows you the sustainability of your actually business business case, right? Is your after sales bringing enough money for your dealership, right?
You're speaking my language.
Not intentionally, but that's yeah, absolutely right. So I mean, that's one key KPI which I actually helped introduce. I'm very proud of it when I moved into my Saudi experience as well.
Yeah.
The dealership was not looking at it from that angle.
Yes.
Absorption ratio is a must. And any brand which is not looking at it, I'm telling you, knock, knock, please start looking at it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the total cost of ownership in ICE is very different way of looking at it when you look at it in EV.
Yeah.
You actually have to front load your profitability when you're selling your EVs and hybrids, right? Because the service interval brings you very little revenue.
Yeah, of course.
You're just changing your AC filter and that's it, right? Not major expenditure. That's where the total cost of ownership education has to come to the customer.
Yeah.
That look, say the average life cycle of a customer is 5 years, which I know is shortening. People are going into leasing model and they want to experiment faster. But let's say for our hypothetical case, it's 5 years. How much he would have spent on fuel? How much he would have spent on maintenance, preventive maintenance, GR or whatever that would be. And versus an EV, how that cost fundamentally goes down. So right now, even if it comes, say, at a markup of 20% over an ICE, it's worth the investment. And second, I always say, which is an angle which most of the people overlook in their discussion, is actually the driving experience. The driving experience of EVs, let alone your total cost of ownership, is a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
So if someone who is actually it gives you a performance experience of something which the sports enthusiasts look up to, right?
Yeah.
So people who transform into EVs, they are going to love it. They would be loving it. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that because tendency is that after sales departments are seen as the back part of the cow. I always use that example. And I say that because I come from an after sales background and I've had different experiences, so it helps us have this conversation. And I've seen what you guys do in after sales. Your facilities are amazing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Your people are amazing. The customer service levels are amazing. And I'm pretty confident that the experience that you and your team are going to create an after sales experience specifically on all portfolios of drivetrains is going to really, really, really be great in the future.
I think in Kuwait market, the dealership name, the badge itself has more value than the brand they are buying. Very strong statement, but I actually mean what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes customers tell us they're not buying Chery, they're buying Chery Al Ghanim.
Yeah.
Right. I represent Yusuf Al Ghanim Industries. So they also clearly tell us that they're not buying Exceed, they're buying Exceed Al Ghanim. So the name of the dealership matters a lot. And that's why it actually doubles up the responsibility on us to not just to disappoint the dealership, but we have equal responsibility not to disappoint the brand itself, right? So we have to actually always balance that. Al Ghanim Industries is a household name in Kuwait. Right?
So allow me to transition in this question, and I'm dying to ask it, and I don't know if it's going to be controversial, but I think you're the best person to answer that. And one of the things is having such a wide portfolio, specifically on the Chery portfolio, being Exceed, Chery, and all the other brands that you have locally in Kuwait. There might be a very high migration from the same brand to the same brand, if you know what I mean.
I know.
A guy migrating from Chery to Exceed.
Exceed or some other brand, I guess.
What are your ideas in bridging that as an organizational leader?
Absolutely. I think cannibalization happens. It's a natural, some percentage of cannibalization is acceptable. But in the end, we always have to make that customer journey smooth. Because what happens in this transition is that I tend to own my space, and the other dealership tends to own its space, right? So that is something which we have very successfully overcome. That in the end, you are representing Al Ghanim. And don't damage the customer experience in this. I'll give you very small global experience of a customer refund. I mean, when it comes to refunds, we make sure that the customer suffers, right? I mean, sometimes they are in tears that why did I even buy the car from them, right? So this is something which I think Al Ghanim has been great at overcoming. We represent the whole ecosystem. It doesn't matter where the transition or the jump of the customer is happening from, but we make sure that jump from one brand to the other is smoother. Obviously, every brand tries its best to retain the customer in a professional, ethical manner.
Okay, so let's talk about business transformation and people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. So Muneeb, Evolve's whole portfolio is people first. And we started this journey with you now almost for a year. And we've been navigating, helping people grow into better leaders, more customer-centric. What does transformation in people look like to you?
A question which is close to my heart, I would tell you, is because last year I was working in Saudi Arabia. Actually, if you remember, that's where I first touched base with you.
Absolutely.
To talk about transformation in that company, Yusuf Naghi. And the scale of that is 10 times bigger than Al Ghanim Industries, right? I mean, that's how big the Saudi market is. And imagine trying to transform Al Ghanim Industries in something which is 10 times bigger than that, how challenging it's going to be, right? So why I'm mentioning this is because I have seen a transformation myself in Yusuf Naghi when I was the in charge of the PMO function. Right? You cannot transform a business till you transform the mindset. I mean, that's my fundamental takeaway of my experience in leadership, is that you cannot transform any business till you transform the mindset and the belief system, which means that if you get the buy-in of the people, then any transformation is a piece of cake, because people will naturally flow with you, they will naturally work with you. But if this is forced on them, you can put any KPI you can put the balance scorecards, you can give them training of Lean Six Sigmas, whatever training module or whatever accountability matrix you can put. If there is no buy-in, there is no belief system, it is just temporal. That has been my success story myself in evolving PMO function in Yusuf Naghi, in actually launching Chery and Al Ghanim Industries, in actually having multiple $1 million SG&A savings and cost savings in various projects I have done. Once people believe in that, they will just actually get into it.
And I'm glad that you mentioned belief. There's three things that you said that really stand out for me. Mindset is one of our sub-dimensions on the ability segment of adaptability. And it's such a key factor in terms of building trust with people.
Absolutely.
And also moving them into a hope model away from uncertainty.
Yes.
And I think you really triggered something in me here where it's close to my heart in terms of helping people move from uncertainty to hope. And we tested that with the Talk of Trust
Talk
program,
of Trust model, absolutely.
right? And Talk of Trust is where we help people build trust through performance high performance teams, collaboration between teams and things. And you've been really successful at that, building trust between teams.
Absolutely.
How has that journey been for you?
Oh, I wouldn't say it has been easy, but it has obviously its challenges.
It's never easy for a dominant compliant personality.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I'm not exposing you there.
No, for audience to know as well, I'm a D, right? I'm a D person, so it obviously certain characteristics come naturally with a D.
Yeah, of course, behavior never lies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in this transformation journey, what has been an eye opener for me, sounds very mundane and simple, has been open communication.
Yeah.
Once I made this mistake of assuming a lot of time that the team knows. So opening up the doors, opening up communication between various functions and letting them talk to each other has been the success for a transformation.
Yeah.
Communication helps. I mean, you have been a witness to the stand-ups, right, which we launched in Chery. I mean, it lit up people's eyes to how useful those meetings are, where every function in the morning gives an update of what's happening, right? And there is a clear takeaway, there's a clear action point, and there is a clear actually sense of belongingness.
Yeah. At one point, you phoned me one morning and said, "I'm not sure if the stand-ups work, right?"
Oh, yeah. that was my D in motion at that time, right?
Yeah, and we spoke through it. And Muneeb, it was such a nice transformation for you to be able to see the adoption of a people-first philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
And your journey in terms of that. Because truly, in terms of transformation, it's essential that we get people on board.
Yeah,
that we have a clear communication, that we have clear mindset in terms of what we really want to achieve by this.
Absolutely. I think one of my struggles as a D has been that getting things done fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you know it, Percy, that I have this chronic problem of trying to get things done immediately, right? But one of the lessons I have personally learned as a leader is step back, give time to the right person, and they will come up with ideas. People are never short of ideas.
Muneeb, that's so nice of you to be so vulnerable and say, listen, to take a step back, because the natural behavior of a D is control.
Yes.
Right? We want to control everything. And I think that careful balance between control and letting go and releasing is such an important recipe of getting people and building trust.
Absolutely. And I think one of the success stories which Chery organization has is that now the team has great trust on each other. And this was our fundamental problem. Like if I talk about the functions, the sales team had very little trust on the after sales team.
Yeah.
But when we started those daily stand-ups and we had this process mapping, etc., and then they started talking to each other, I mean, it was shocking for me to know that it was all coming along together so nicely. Right, and we were finding solutions.
And we did that in 12 days.
In 12 days, absolutely. I mean, it was an incredible
You
journey.
can be super proud of the team in terms of what they've achieved.
Absolutely.
And this is really something that you have to see is this collective process mapping and really the approach that it has in building bonds and collaboration bonds between sales and after sales. That synergy between sales and after sales.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you, I have no shame in actually acknowledging that from that exercise, we unearthed more than 500 problems, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can never fix till you don't acknowledge there's a problem, right? So that acknowledgement was the first step in actually fixing our customer journey, right?
Muneeb, I really want to mention this because you're a young leader. I define you as a young leader. That doesn't mean that you're not capable. But there's a stigma behind the capability of young leaders. And the way that you've embraced this whole approach of talk of trust with vulnerability and helping your people understand the pain points that they have has been extraordinary. Yeah. And I want to compliment you on that. And it's part of this podcast to give you that accolade of saying, I take my hat off to you as a young leader. Yes. In terms of really being vulnerable and saying, listen, I'm exposing everything so that we can move forward.
Absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things behind that exercise was that people were susceptible.
Yeah.
They were questioning, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And my answer to them was that, look, don't question the intention.
Yeah.
Question the outcome.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't like the outcome, then you can probably question me, right? But the intention right now is to fix the customer journey. And it again circles back to where we started this podcast is actually right now the whole value proposition
Yes.
lies in customer experience.
100%.
Until you don't crack your customer experience, anything you do, any cost saving exercise or any revenue generation channel you identify is short-lived. It is the sustainability and longevity of your customer experience.
And pulling the levers on the omni-channel, pulling the levers on every dimension of a customer touch point is not easy, Muneeb.
Absolutely.
And you guys map that from end to end. And what I'm seeing is how you're pulling the lever slowly to connect all the dots for your team so that they have collective learning. And that's extraordinary.
And this exercise has made our team bold at a leadership level to take tough decisions.
Good.
I mean, this easier said than done. And I mean, at a managerial level, whoever is running their functions, they are not shy of having tough conversations. I think in an organization, the classical mistake that we make is we run away from problems or we shy away from having tough conversations.
Yeah.
One thing which the talk of trust training and the process mapping exercise which we have done with your organization Evolve is that do not delay any problem. Actually confront it now so that you're actually ready to solve the problem tomorrow. Right?
And that's not easy, Muneeb. That's not easy to confront the things that stare you in the face and having a very high, steady, compliant team.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It just means that it takes a bit more effort to convince how change happens.
Exactly.
Right? And that must have been a big challenge for you.
It's been a big challenge. I tell you, with these compliant C-type audience, even if you give the data, they would still question it.
Of course.
I mean, when they ask you for the data to prove a point, still a question mark. Then I've realized actually sometimes it's not what you're presenting, it's actually how you're presenting. If you present the data in a more subtle way or say that it is in their interest, they actually listen to it and believe in it. If me being a D, if I was to give that, okay, this is the data, this is the number, our market share is going down, for example, you have to step up, doesn't work. Yeah. If you tell us that you're all in this together, our market share is actually, this is an area where we can tweak, they all listen carefully. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a journey, as they say.
Fantastic.
And we're still evolving, right?
Yeah, I love the word evolving. It's like my cup. So, Muneeb, you're also kind of a comedian. You're a stand-up comedian. Let's move away from that for a bit. And then I really want to explore the side of your charitable contributions. You seem to be a man that has a heart for people.
Absolutely.
And I want to explore that. Talk to me a bit about all of that. I want to hear it stripped to the bone.
I got it, yeah. I mean, sometimes there's a downside to being so charitable as well, because in the organization, in a pure corporate setting, that normally does not fare well, right? Yeah. Because there the requirement for following the processes and procedures come into play, right? But just a bit of a personal side about me is I actually run an NGO back home where we actually encourage technical education.
Fantastic.
I'm a big proponent that the world in general is moving away from technical education and becoming more content creators, right? I feel no fun in being a millionaire when I actually have no grassroots knowledge. Right? I can earn millions by posting something funny on social media, but if there is no meat behind me about myself, I don't believe in that. So I run an NGO where we actually encourage to the needy and the poor people to give funding for their doctor education, for engineering, for something where they can contribute to the society, right? And this also goes back to my own professional career, where I used to be a teacher when I started my career, right? I used to be a university lecturer for business studies and economics. And I still do career counseling for a lot of students who actually come to me for help. I mean, as you can understand, probably coaching and guiding and training is in me, right? So that's where this all comes about, right?
Yeah, I'm laughing because we have another philosophy to help coach and guide, right? We're not going to go down that route. So this charitable, I love the concept behind helping people read maps.
Yeah.
If you understand what I'm saying. And what I mean by that is teaching them skills to be able to move on, or standing out on social media as a matter of fact.
Yes, correct.
That's a beautiful thing to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we are becoming a lot of very much content consumers, right? Or content creators, right? But I want to be in the world where people actually know what they're doing. They're contributing to the society. Let it be a doctor, let it be an engineer, let it be a mechanic, an automotive mechanic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoever that be. But these are the kind of people we actually identify, handpick in this organization. Its name is actually Help Education. And that's where we give them funding.
So how can people support the cause?
It's actually, we have a website for that. Its name is helpeducationtrust.org. And all the details are there on the website. People can actually fill out the form, or if they want to contribute, they can read all about it. I mean, we have actually now funded more than 400 students who have actually graduated their master's or doctor studies, right? I mean, I'm proud of it that actually we do interviews. We actually handpick them who are actually needy, right? Because the selection process has to be very meticulous.
Yes.
Because when the pool is so big of people who are deserving, we have to be really cracking the code to give the money to the right people. Yeah.
So that means that's that fine balance by making sure that you hit the right notes.
Absolutely.
And that you help the right people.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. So there you heard it from Muneeb. All the details in terms of the NGO will be available.
Yeah.
We'll obviously put it in the podcast for you, for all the listeners, so that they can support this wonderful cause.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Right. So talk about the comedian side. You're a bit of a stand-up comedian as well.
I mean, a lot of my colleagues joke with me that had you not been in the business where you are, or as a business leader, you would have been a comedian.
Yeah.
I think it comes natural to me. I think the only person who understands when I'm joking or I'm serious is my wife. Other than that, everyone around me actually sometimes struggles. Sometimes even my parents. But I actually, there is a reason behind it. I mean, when I joke, sometimes is to lighten up the mood.
Yeah.
And still, in back of my mind, do know that there's a fine line between a joke or sarcasm.
Yeah.
And still, there's a fine line between hurting someone, feelings, and then or passing on the message to someone. So as long as I'm self-aware of what I'm doing, I crack joke to the maximum I can, right?
Look, the vulnerability that you're displaying, Muneeb, is just fantastic in terms of, and I think a lot of leaders today are not willing to remove that mask of that's so glued to their face that unfortunately it's almost impossible for them to remove. One of the experiences that I usually share is that, and I'm so glad that you were open to coaching and soundboarding, because when we start talking at executive level coaching, there's a huge resistance because I've arrived, I know what I want to do. And in all fairness, it's not a bad thing.
Yes.
It just means that we want to create a safe space for people to have a soundboard. So obviously, Evolve has offered you a soundboard. Talk a bit about that journey. How did it feel to be coached? How did it feel to have a soundboard? And how do we break the back of this understanding that I don't need to be coached?
Yeah. I think the buzzword in this answer is going to be honesty.
Yeah.
If you're not honest to yourself, any coaching session is going to be a failure. I mean, if you do not accept what the coach is actually telling you, he can tell you all the truth or all the falsehood, but if you're not honest to yourself, you're not going to move an inch. I mean, that has been my success story, and that has been the success story of also people I have coached, is that you can give as much guidance, as much coaching as you can. Till the time the other person is not willing to adapt and willing to be coached, there's nothing you can do about it, right? Yeah. I mean, we can do 50% of the job. The 50% of the job is in the receiver's hands. Right, and I think, as I said, it's just all about honesty. I mean, in terms of my leadership style as well. Yeah. Many people question me that you're too close to your people, and as they say that executive level we tend to put on a mask of unemotionalness and not showing our face and being subtle and having certain postures. I personally don't believe in that. I think the closer you are to your team, the closer you would actually hear the concern and the more agile you're going to be. I mean, you obviously still give space to the right people to make the decisions, but knowing what's going on at the ground level, these are two different things.
Yeah, and the interesting part is you have a high influx of millennial and Generation Z in your organization. And the greater need is to work very closely to management. And actually, they have a big problem with the word leadership in itself, and we've explored that a lot. What are some of the things that you've put in place to help, and I think you've touched on it, working very closely with your teams to manage teams in this generation, millennials and Z?
Yeah, I think one thing which I myself I'm still trying to overcome and dealing with millennials and Gen Zs is that flexibility.
Yeah.
You yourself as a leader have to be flexible. If you're not flexible, trust me, you're having the wrong audience, then a wrong staff. Then it's better to hire people who are in their older age, of 50 plus, right? So if you want to hire Gen Zs and Gen X, yourself have to be very flexible. You have to let it go. There will be days where they don't want to work. There will be days where they will show up late. There will be days where they don't want to be led, right? So these days, just show flexibility, just show concern and empathy, and then simple, you have their buy-in. Yeah.
You sound like an AQI AI expert, and I really love talking about that.
I need coaching on that. Yeah, I need coaching. On that.
No. So thanks for that, Muneeb. Yeah, and it's been an interesting journey for you. So going from finance to F&B, all right, and then automotive. And the whole theme that we started talking was going from boardroom to showroom.
Yeah.
And you came up with that slogan, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about from boardroom to showroom.
I mean, in the boardroom, I think started with JP Morgan and where we were doing pitch books and developing those. And I worked in corporate finance. And that was actually an eye-opener for me, is that I was the presenter, right? But I had no sense of the numbers, right? Yeah. So going from boardroom to showroom has literally means that going on the ground, getting your hands dirty, feeling and experiencing what's going on. And that's who I am. Right? Whatever I get into, I like to know it by heart. I like to feel it, right? So as I said, I never had tasted coffee in my entire life. But when I moved to Costa Coffee, I mean, I became a coffee lover. I never knew actually specs of the vehicles, but now you ask me about any spec of the car, probably I would be the first one to talk about it, right? So from boardroom to showroom, from being a high-level guy, a superficial guy, to a guy who likes to get his hands dirty, that's who I am.
So I want to explore the topic of artificial intelligence with you. How do you think we can use artificial intelligence in leading people?
I am a big proponent of AI.
Yeah.
And I would answer that shortly, but I personally have mandated to our HR department that any marketing CV which is coming to me, make sure that you have tested that the person knows the tools in AI.
Yeah.
Because especially in marketing field and CRM field, whoever is not up to speed with this is going to be left behind. And I keep seeing many videos, which I would just repeat, is AI is not meant to replace you, it's meant to aid you. Yeah. Right? So it's not a replacement tool. It's actually, imagine, especially for people who are millennials and Gen Zs, it's actually a blessing in disguise that you are using this tool to actually fast track your work and free up your space for scrolling, right? So, I mean, AI is going to help us a lot. It is already helping us a lot. And that's the way to go for us.
Yeah. Right. Muneeb, it has been a really interesting conversation. We've explored who you are. We've spoken about people transformation.
Yeah.
We spoke about your passion in the brand, Chery, Exceed, and all the other brands under your portfolio. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be many, many more. We've spoken about your NGO activities. We spoke a bit about AI. Not enough.
Not enough.
Right.
Absolutely.
So in closing, right, what's next for Muneeb?
No, first, actually, thank you for having me here, Percy. I really appreciate that. And it's a great gesture from you. And actually is that sign of trust, I think, that we have with each other. And what next for me is whatever I do, whatever Muneeb does, he does it with 100% integrity and closure. And I tell you, I have seen many leaders and many managers and many individuals who are passionate about starting something, but they don't close it. Yeah. I mean, I think that is my personal brand value, that whatever I do, I close it. Yeah. I don't leave it open. So wherever my career goes, wherever my journey goes, I think I'm going to be always giving my 100%. If you ask me personally what I love doing, I love teaching people. So if today any opportunity comes where I'm a university lecturer, probably that could be it, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Will we see some of Muneeb's future podcasts?
I would love to.
Yeah, absolutely. There you have it. We had Muneeb as our guest and our very first guest on Talk. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Muneeb with us. Your next trip is China, right?
I'm just heading to China.
So it's been a fine line cutting this podcast, but extremely grateful to have you. I've learned so much from you personally, Muneeb, in terms of the way that you lead people, the way that you lead your organization, your personal values. It's been absolute great experience to have you with us.
And I think, Percy, having you on board as well in actually coaching our team, giving talk of trust training has been an eye-opener, and it has busted a lot of myths how I used to lead, and I am really also thankful for that. And thank you for having me also here.
So Muneeb, before we go, can you give them all your details and how can they get a Exceed and Chery from you?
Oh, absolutely. That's my language now, right? Yeah. So on LinkedIn, I'm available anytime on my.
And we'll put all the handles.
My handle is actually Muneeb Jamil.
Yeah.
But obviously we will put it here. And anyone who also wants to buy a Chery and Exceed, even within GCC, I will get you in touch with them. Yeah. Whoever is the dealership, right? So more than happy to welcome anyone who is interested in buying the car.
Thank you very much. And it was great to have Muneeb. And looking forward to our next talk. Be on the outlook.